Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Gina. Welcome back if you are you're returning, or welcome if this is your first visit with me. Um, Basically, I get in front of the microphone and just kind of talk about what comes up, and um, I've been actually encouraged by my spirit guides to just get on the microphone when I feel inspired. So I'm trying to kind of look for those moments, and I think I may have found one. What I notice is when I'm just going about my daily activities or resting or whatever it is I'm doing, a subject or topic will start to follow me. And basically, that tells me to either write about it or talk about it. So I think I'm going to talk about it. The subject or topic that keeps coming up is the term mirroring. And this is something I've learned about through my studies as a student of spiritual awareness, or awareness of our true selves, which is our energetic self or our soul. And I've been doing a lot of writing about this, and I just finished a new article called Universal Awareness, which is basically about the awareness of ourselves as a human and ourselves as a energetic being, and what that means, and how it really changed my perspective on my human life. And it just makes everything puts everything into kind of vivid um, detail about why we're here as humans and what we're here to do. And it really helped me engage with the engine in this vehicle, which is my soul. And one of the things I learned through my studies is that we learn as souls. We come here to get into the human body, incarnate into a human form, this dense form, in order to have an experience. We want to, as souls, experience specific things, whether it's you know, something from another life that we didn't get to complete, or it is a karmic um, experience, which is something we need to experience in order to overcome karma or to learn, which is the same thing. And I realized that through my studies that I was able to identify the exact things that my soul came here to do. And this is one of the beautiful elements of the Gene Keys Golden Path series by Richard Rudd, which I'll probably mention as often as I can throughout these podcasts, because they were so important to me in accelerating my healing from the end of my marriage, and really accelerating my ability to look within, quote unquote, and really see what's there and really deal with it. So, understanding those things allowed me to kind of focus or pinpoint on the things that I needed to work on or understand about myself, either as tendencies or um, just things that I would deal with in this lifetime, because my soul chose these things. And so, looking back at some of those items or topics or subjects that my soul wanted to deal with in this lifetime, um, you get an underlying kind of understanding of how we do it. We incarnate. We're born into this world through the birth canal, and we're born into a family. We begin to have experiences that teach us how to react to life or respond, depending on what our environment is. And we do that through the interaction with other people, and the world too, of course. but mostly or primarily with other people. So what we do, what we come here to do, and this is what I'm learning, um, is we come here to have relationships. One of the biggest reasons, and I think I mentioned this before, one of the biggest reasons that our soul wants to incarnate as a human being in the earthly plane in this three-dimensional density is because they want this experience as a single identity. So they inhabit a body. That the soul, basically the memory of the soul, is erased for the better part of this life, so we don't remember too much, thereby interrupting or disrupting the experience that we're having. So we kind of have to forget that we're energetic light beings, that we're infinite life, in order to have an individualized experience as a human being. So it's kind of like having your memory erased when you're going into a new simulation, or you're going from one simulation to another. So you don't want to carry the experience from the old simulation into the new one. So you delete those files and you clear your hard drive for, to gather the new data in the new simulation, and then apply that to your life, or to what you're doing. So if you think of it that way, it's kind of easy. And this is how it helped me. I think I referred to our life here as a human, as a virtual reality experience. I did in the last one. Actually, the title was virtual reality. But basically, when you think of it in those terms, it's easy to see why the soul wants to be here. The soul wants to have this individualized experience so they can have relationships with other souls having an individualized experience. So we choose this three-dimensional or dense vessel in order to have this sensory experience. We want to be able to touch and feel and smell and taste and hear, and we want to experience emotions. And primarily we come here, and I've been told this by my spirit team, and I've learned this through my studies. We come here primarily to experience love, because we're basically the embodiment of love and light as an energetic being. We really aren't capable of carrying around egoic baggage. Once we leave the body, the human body, we only leave with our energy. So it's, you know we only take the essentials with us. So if our house is on fire, we have to grab the couple things that we need. We grab those things and we go. We let everything else go. So when we leave our bodies as an energetic being or a soul, we don't take any of the baggage with us. We don't take, our fears or insecurities or our regrets. What we are the embodiment of basically is love. That's what light is. Light is love, and we are light beings. So I'm not saying we don't have karmic issues to deal with. We carry those from lifetime to lifetime, and I'm not sure how that looks when we're in our energetic formlessness without the body. But I do know that we carry on as a loving being. So when we are embodied in a human form, that love is still a primary part of us. It may be muffled or baffled or even erased to some degree so we can have a specific experience, but we're basically light beings, which is love beings. So, not to get on a soapbox, but I guess there's an opportunity here to just kind of remind everybody, or maybe inform us, or give us a seed to allow to germinate, is that we are all the same before we enter this body. We are all energy. Um, when we come into this world, we basically choose an outfit. We choose, what we're going to look like. Well, are we going to be, black or white, or male or female, or are we going to have, different identifying traits and characteristics based on what we choose. So, and if you think about that on a grander scope, if we're not incarnating on Earth and we're going into a different atmosphere or a different planetary reality, we may not even be human. We might incarnate as some other being. And this makes perfect sense to me, actually, after a lifetime of living and kind of wonder of why the hell I'm here and what am I doing, learning these things, and not just learning them through my brain, but kind of understanding them energetically from my connection to other energetic souls who are not incarnated. It's almost like a wisdom in me has been activated, something I've always known, and we all know this. We're just so deadened by this human experience that we forget. And we're meant to forget so we can have this human experience. So again, if we didn't forget and we remembered that we're energetic love, why would we experience pain? Why would we experience these relationships with our karmic friends where we end up in pain or disillusionment or confusion or all the things we experience as a human being? Our soul wants to experience those things. So if we remembered that we don't have to and that we can leave anytime we want, and we can, I mean, as souls, we choose to go when we're ready to go. The body lays down and dies, either through an act or an action or an act or whenever or whatever, however we choose to do it. So if we remembered that we can leave whenever we want, we would not engage. We would not have this virtual reality experience. We would end the simulation and we would say, get me the hell out of here. And some of us do that. Some of us do that. But if you think about it from this grand perspective of a soul having a human experience, it really eases the discomfort with it. And it allows you, or it has allowed me, to really focus on the experience and not so much on the result or the impact of the experience, which is, of course, the heartbreak and the loss and the pain and the myriad of other emotions we experience as humans. So, we each choose a different human suit. So, I'm going to be an African American woman on this visit, or I'm going to be a white male, in the South on this visit. I'm going to be a diplomat in, I don't know where they have diplomats. So it's, I guess that's everywhere, but I choose my human suit and my human situation before I come. So if you embrace that idea, then it really kind of opens up your well, honestly, that it quite literally activates your understanding of what you are. It's like a dormant set of cells in your body that once stimulated, once they're stimulated, they uh, they rise up and they become wisdom in your knowing, in your intuition, in your solar plexus, your gut. And I believe that things happen in our lifetimes as humans when they're meant to by our predestiny that activate these dormant cells in our DNA. There is a large part of our DNA that's considered junk by scientists, but I'm learning that DNA is not useful in this three-dimensional state that we're in. So most of it is dormant. And as we evolve as souls, more and more of that DNA becomes engaged and it gives us new wisdom or capabilities or understandings or even powers. I mean, look at psychic ability. I mean, there's lots of things that we have access to that we have capabilities of that we don't have access to in the state in, of humanness, of this in this three-dimensional vibrancy, which is not finite or refined enough to encompass these gifts or these realities that are dormant in our DNA. So as we evolve as humans from the 3D to the 4D and then the 5D and beyond, these dormancies awaken. And I believe we all have dormancies that awaken throughout our lives, and we will experience these as epiphanies. When something comes to us through our solar plexus or our intuition that changes us. I had this experience when I went through my healing, where I had to understand, and I began to have understandings about myself as an energetic being and why I'm here. And, I've talked about this before. One of the big things I had to come to terms with was that I identified as a victim in this life. So, because I identified as a victim, I invited relationships that played this out, that put me in the role as a victim, because that was the only way I could experience it. And then when the time was right for my soul, whether it was this lifetime or another, overcome it. And I believe this is something I've been carrying through lifetimes as a karmic topic that my soul wanted to tackle. So, think of human experience as a chess game, and the players are these infinite beings out in the universe. I mean, we're being moved around a chessboard, and we're being, we're having this experience based on the where we're placed. Another way to think of it is we are performers. We're performing in theater. Our souls occupied an actor or actress, and we are playing out a role. And when you think of our human life in those terms, it really takes away the fear. I mean, quite honestly, it takes away the fear of life, because I'm living for my soul, which is an infinite being who has no end. All I'm seeking as a soul is an education so I can evolve, and I can become a sage, and I can stop incarnating and become a support for other incarnated souls. So that's what my spirit guides are. Now, they may or may not incarnate again, but right now they are not incarnated, and they are providing me support from an unearthly realm. And there are many, many, many souls around us that are not incarnated, and that may have never been incarnated, or maybe have incarnated as different life forms in different galaxies. I mean, this is the only thing that made any sense to me. I wandered through this lifetime kind of wondering, why am I here? All I'm feeling is pain and suffering, and every relationship that I've had has proven uh, uncomfortable, is like the least I can put it. Most of them have been quite painful. But there have been bright lights in all of this that have really made me understand, and especially now looking back, that these experiences are predestined for the most part, because, and I'm not saying we don't have free will, because we do, but the major aspects are things that our soul wanted to experience. And I'll give you an example. I just wrote an article called Universal Awareness. I just published on my blog yesterday. And it's it basically highlights the karmic relationships in my life, which really were what I became to understand when I became, spiritually aware. And I know that catchphrase is really popular, but what to me, what spiritual awareness means is an awareness of my true self as an energetic being. So I'm not just a human living a human life till I die and hoping for happiness and success and peace, but I'm in partnership with my energetic soul. And when I work with her, I have an incredible experience as a human. So the point of the article is to recognize and acknowledge and engage with your energetic self or your soul, and find out why she or he is here, and get on board. So this is what I was able to um, figure out by way of my spiritual awakening. So that's all it is. It's an introduction to your soul self, who is the engine driving the vehicle that you identify as. So I just switched from identifying from my vehicle to identifying to the driver as the driver. So if you look at your car that you drive every day, I mean, when you get in your car, you don't become your car. You think of your car as something that takes you places so you can have experiences. I'm going to Susie's house, or I'm going to the grocery store, or I'm going on a vacation, or that's where your vehicle takes you. But you are not your vehicle. You get out of your car and you go have the experience. You don't identify as your car. That same uh, thing applies to our human body. It's a vehicle. It is a vessel for us to occupy. So now that I'm able to kind of look beyond myself as a human, I can see the purpose of my soul through the gene keys identifying the specific karmic topics that I brought into this life. And that's done by identifying your birth time and the planetary alignments at that time and before you were born. And this is something I had no understanding of before this. I never had a tarot card reading. I never even cared about my astrological signs or placements, or I had no understanding or even really interest in it. To me, it seemed like just another layer of a spirituality, quote unquote, that I didn't really understand. But it has everything to do with who we are as a soul, because those planetary placements kind of predestine our visit. And it's almost like when you figure out a math problem, you get the answer. If you look at the planetary alignments as the math problem, once you figure out what the answer is, you have the information you need to have a cooperative relationship with your soul. It's really that simple. And once you kind of understand that, and I've referred to this as our user manual in other podcasts, once you have access to that relationship with your soul, you can begin to align with her. You can begin to make the changes in your 3D life, your human life, that begin to align you with your soul's purpose. So for me, the big one was removing myself from a toxic relationship. And that was my marriage. It was less than a 5-year marriage, but it was a 25-year relationship with my ex-husband, who I was also in business with for 12 years. So I had to first end the relationship, which was the most difficult thing I'd ever done because I loved this man. I knew this man had the potential to care for me the way I knew I deserved, but he was too deeply unaware of his own power. And he chose his ego as his dictator, and he lived in service of it. And it's not his fault. That was his level of awareness at the time we were together. And whether that changes for him in the future, which I hope it does, doesn't matter to me anymore. So, as an empathetic, compassionate person who leads with my heart, leaving somebody who had that incredible potential that I'd spent 25 years with was the most difficult thing I'd ever done. But I did it. I removed myself from that relationship at 58 years old, not knowing what was ahead for me. And I began to heal. And in this healing, I began to have these understandings, these epiphanies, these psychic hits, these messages from my higher self, who is watching over me every moment of my life, who's helping me make these life-changing decisions. So an epiphany, or an idea that comes to you out of nowhere that changes you, is a gift from these energetic beings that are not incarnated, that are watching over us, that have our best interests at heart, who are here to help us evolve. So one of the psychic hits I had during this healing was that I was as empty as my ex-husband emotionally, even though I was empathetic and compassionate, and I craved that from him. I had nothing else to offer either. And I knew that that was the same as him, that was what we had in common. And even though it was the most horrifying thing I had to face, I had to face it. So I did. I knew I didn't have a choice. And in that, this work is called, it's referred to as the dark night of the soul. It's walking your inner landscape by yourself and figuring out why you do the things you do in your life, why you attract the things that you attract. So, of course, my biggest question is, why the frig did I attract this emotionally unavailable, this emotionally vacant man? Does that mean I'm emotionally vacant? And the answer is yes, it did. So that is a real life example of how our relationships mirror us. So I opened this with that term mirroring. And this is something I've learned through my spirit guides, that we are mirrored by the people in our lives. So our relationships mirror who we are. So just imagine my disgust. I mean, really, initially, that I was as empty as he was. And that although I walked through life differently, I walked through life with leading with my heart and my compassion. So I enveloped other people and I sought to support other people. And what I did, because I was empty, is I overcompensated for them. I became very good at overcompensating for the ones who lacked the emotional capacity. And this started early on in my life. I was born into a family with an alcoholic mother who was violent, and a father who was a tender, gentle soul, compassionate, loving soul, who was artistically creative, who lived his whole life as an artist, who never hurt a fly, who molested me. I mean, this is just such a prime example of, I mean, forget the demons my parents had to deal with. We all have them. We bring them into this world. But I was born into a family that would set the stage for this karmic life. I mean, when you can look at it from that high of a perspective and see that these two souls who were completely controlled by their demons throughout their entire lives, by the way, they never were allowed, and they didn't experience an awakening in this one, but I believe they will in one future life when they choose to, when their soul is ready. When their soul is ready to graduate, which is what I refer to it as, graduate from human school. When you get this grand perspective and you no longer are the embodiment of your experiences, you are the experiencer of your experiences. They don't define you anymore. You are free from the human condition, which is believing you're a product of your experiences, of your culture, of your belief systems, of the life that you erected in the state of mind that you were in. And this is reflected in all of our relationships. So I came into this family, this family in chronic pain, because I was meant to experience this beginning. I was emotionally and physically abused by my mother. God bless her. She was controlled by her alcoholism, which is controlled by her need for something outside of herself to soothe her. That's why she picked up the first drink, and why it became her crutch. And then it controlled her, and then it killed her. My father, this gifted artist whose demons were gambling and I don't know what the right word is, he was sexually twisted. I mean, if you look at them as souls having an experience and you understand that your experience is tied to theirs, I mean, how do you how could you get mad at them? How do you blame them? You cannot blame them. If I blame them, then I have to blame myself for the pain that I went through. And I'm not going to do that. I have grand compassion for myself, deep self-love for what I went through. I understand why I did it. And of course, I feel that way about my parents. I love them deeply. And I hope that they're in peace while they're not incarnated, because they both left this world. And even when they passed away, I was just grateful. Even before my spiritual awakening, I was just grateful that they didn't have to live in that chaos anymore. And I just was so, I look back at them now and I'm just like, wow. I mean, look at they delivered the performance that I needed to set the foundation for my performance as a young person and then an adult. And these are the relationships that formed me, that helped form the human me. Let me say that, because I was well formed and have always been the whole time as an energetic being. So I'm writing this article called Universal Awareness, and I'm highlighting the relationships before and after the relationship with my daughter's father. And the first one, I was 19 years old. I was in a relationship with a man who I was enamored with. And he um, he showed me emotions I'd never seen in a human before. He was attentive. He was kind. He wanted to wait for me to be ready, like for our first sexual experience, which took a long time. I was 19 before I had sex for the first time. I mean, it's not something I really clamored towards, as you might expect, but I felt like I was in a loving relationship when I first had sex. And it quickly turned into a possessive relationship where he wanted to possess me, and he would of course it was conveyed as love and affection and loyalty, but then it turned into um, I don't really want you to go there without me. Let me go with you. And then eventually it was, well, you don't need to go there. Just stay home. And then it was eventually, well, I'm going to go out, but you stay home. And by the way, I don't want you leaving the apartment when I'm not home. I love you and I don't want anything to happen to you. And you need to quit your job and could just come with me to work. I'll take care of the bills. And so I did. And I went to work with him every day. I didn't drive yet. I didn't drive till I was 21, till after this relationship. So it was a 3-year relationship, 19 to 21. And I felt loved. I felt loved for the first time in my life. I thought, oh man, I hit the jackpot. So the odd controlling behavior to me was really not a concern. I wasn't concerned with it at all. And so I wanted to just believe that I was in a good place. And of course I wasn't. Of course I wasn't in a good place. I thought that his controlling behavior was evidence that he loved me, but um, anyone who's been through it knows different. But as a 19-year-old girl who had grown up in a family of a lot of difficult dynamics and abuse, this felt like love to me. That boy, this guy must really love me if he wants me by him every minute of the day and doesn't want me anywhere else. So in my twisted ideal of what love was, or my unawareness of what love was, I I thought I was being cherished. It wasn't until he became enamored with another young woman that I realized that I needed to go, which is kind of odd. But the behavior wasn't the driver for me to go. It was me believing that he wanted someone else. So, um, I was able to finally leave, and I got my driver's license, and I got a car and started my life, at 21. And I was living in South Florida at the time, and it's funny because I went to work with him every day. He was a roofer, and because I went to work with him, I used to just sun myself on the roofs, and then eventually I would start to help him, and I became an employee of the company. I was the only female roofer in the county, and maybe beyond. And uh, after working together for so long, when I broke up with him, I continued to work. The company gave me a truck, and um, I had my own crew, and we just I kept going. Um, I worked as a roofer until I fell off a roof for the first time. I wasn't injured, but I realized I guess I liken it to getting the sense knocked into me. I realized that I was not where I needed to be, and I was finally able to let that go too. But to me, that whole experience while I was in it felt like the first time I was experiencing love. But of course, it was it was a karmic relationship. It was, I was experiencing this possessive man, because he was a mirror to how I felt about myself. I was being shown who I am by the way I was being treated. And by the fact that I allowed it to go on was my, deep unawareness of what needed to change within me. So that was my first karmic relationship. And then I met my first husband, and we had a child together, my only child, a daughter. And we were both young and insecure, and he was part of a family that was the first example to me of a real family. He is one of 10 siblings, and this is a family that I adopted into my life when I was 11 years old. We moved into the area, and they lived down the street, and I immersed myself in this family because they felt like what a family should feel like. And I knew they weren't my family, but it didn't matter. I was accepted as one of the clan, and I just became part of that family. Whether they realized or not, it didn't matter. I felt a part of something. And he was a younger brother of my friend, the person who introduced me to this family. And um, years later, after I moved away to Florida, he, I would come back once a year to visit. And once I broke up with my boyfriend, we connected in an adult way, or I should say, as adults, and found that we had, you know, an appreciation for each other, and we became involved. And uh, I got pregnant unintentionally several years later. I think we were together 7 years or something like that, 6 or 7 years. I was living back in the state that I was born in, and immersed in this family again. And now I had a child, and although I was incredibly insecure as a mother, I actually didn't believe that I had the ability to be a good mom. I was very, very nervous about my ability. So I basically did the opposite of what my parents did, and hoped that I would be able to be a good mom. And I brought this beautiful child into the world, and she was born into an incredibly loving family, which gave me such soul satisfaction because I knew on my side of the family, there was only me locally, and my three siblings had scattered to the winds when we were old enough because of the terrible, environment we lived in as kids. So I didn't have relationships with any of my siblings at the time, and it was just me. And there was this family of 10 siblings and all of their extended family that was embracing this child and this my daughter. And it just felt so right to me. And although I didn't really understand at the time, I knew that it was important that she be born into this family. And so a few years later, husband and my first husband and I did split. We were both very young. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what love was. He was a friend, and that felt like love enough for me. We had a deep appreciation for each other, and we we created this child, which I believe is the reason why we came together, and the reason why this relationship was not a karmic one. I was meant to bring this indigo child into the world. That was one of my soul's purpose and part of my blueprint or the plan for my life in this incarnation. And that indigo child is now having her own child, who's been referred to as a rainbow child. And I mentioned this in one other podcast, but if you're curious about what that is, do some Googling. It's really interesting. So there is, there's fate in this incarnation. There's a lot of fated things that I'm meant to do, and one of them was to have my child, so she can have her child, and so on. But this relationship with my first husband was not of the same theme as the one before it, and the one that would be coming up after it. So when I look back at it, I realized this was a time in my life or my soul's life where I was kind of like called time out and said, "Okay, you need to have this child. This is part of your purpose." So 30 years later, 30 some years later, I still have this deep connection to this family. I still have friendships there, and my ex-husband and I are still friends. And we co-parented this beautiful young woman who's having her own child now, and it's just the perfect environment to bring in another child into an environment where this child will be cherished, because this child, like my child, has a purpose also. And the purpose is unknown to me and will be evident when it's evident. But my child and her child were meant to be born into loving families because they are not meant to experience the same karmic lessons that I did. They're born lighter, more evolved beings. So they don't need to learn the hard lessons the way that my soul chose to in order to get to this place in my life. So that's why I had that relationship, and I still have these friendships with this family. I considered their mom to be my mom, and I called her mom. It was, I still do, even though she's passed away from this life. So, my next relationship, which would be my next and biggest karmic relationship, was my ex-husband, who I was with for nearly 25 years, and I've talked about at length, which was the biggest karmic relationship that I will have in this lifetime, and it was the one that mirrored me most gruesome detail. That I had been so closed down emotionally from my experiences as a child and a young adult, because I was molested again as a teenager. Um, who I became was in full bloom when I was with this man. So I invited this man as a karmic soulmate, and this was predestined. This is part of my fated experience in this incarnation, was to have this relationship with this man who would deliver the experience that would break my spirit and cause me to go inward and have this spiritual awakening, which is again the understanding of my energetic self and a connection to that engine in this vehicle. So that's why we go through these awakenings. It's not to come to terms with or accept without freedom what would happen to us. It's to become free of it. It is to become free of what happens to us in this lifetime or any lifetime. So this connection to our soul selves, or this spiritual introduction or awakening, gives us access to this whole other part of us that exists in this realm, in this physical, dense atmosphere, to have these relationships that mirror who we are, so we can see ourselves and then accept first and appreciate with love who we are, and then pull it apart and process it and release it. And there's where the freedom comes in. So by learning our karmic lessons, we are freed of them. And so by overcoming or transmuting my identification as a victim into self-love and self-empowerment, erased that karma from my bloodline and essentially allowed me to graduate from human school. And I've been referred to in my tarot readings by my spirit team as the wounded healer. I don't know really what that means in real time, but I'm supposed to tell my story. And one of the purposes of my soul is to come to this time in my life where I start to tell my story and I share my perspectives and my lessons and I um, give back in this way. And because I went through this karmic life, I'm almost 60 years old now. And I always tell my spirit guys, why did you wait so long? Why did I wait so long? I could have been enjoying this at 30 or whatever, but that wasn't the way it was meant to be. But you're never too old. I mean, I'm alone again. I am rediscovering who I am. I am readying myself for the rest of my life, which I've mentioned before that I have a new soulmate coming. And this is a man who I've been told we may even share a soul and that we split our soul in half in order to have two different experiences. So when we came back together at the end of this particular life and the end, our later years, is so our diametrically opposite experiences can come together and create this robust human. So he is described as the materialist. He has gone through a life of accumulating wealth and material success and popularity and the physical and egoic experience of life. And he's had his downs. Trust me, he's not experienced love before either. I don't know his story yet. But when we come together, one of the things our souls wanted to experience was true love and partnership with another human. So we are going to be that for each other. And I'm referred to as a spiritualist, the awakened one, the one who has learned my karmic lessons. And so when we come together, we will be this fully formed human because we will learn from each other and we will evolve together and heal together and spend the rest of our lives in each other's loving energy. So that is what my soul chose as the ending of the story. So it's quite beautiful. And when you stand high enough to look at the whole thing from the top, it's quite beautiful. The whole story, even all of the pain. So, I'm meant to have this new man in my life who is described to me in pretty good detail and who is from another country. He's from New Zealand, I believe. And he is um, going through something now that is changing the way he thinks about his life. And he is turning from the materialist to looking at his spirituality. He doesn't maybe quite understand it yet, or maybe he does. I don't really know. But he is readying for this reunion with me. And he is going to unlock material success in my life. And I'm going to unlock or activate, is how it's been put, spiritual alignment in his. So, see how brilliant that is? It's kind of magnificent. Um, so I'm going through these, I'm writing this article and looking back at these three relationships, the only three main ones I've had in my life. The first one lasted 3 years with a man who possessed me, who I felt loved by. That was my karma uh, manifested in a relationship. So, and my second relationship was this loving, kind soul who is still in my life, who I engaged to have this beautiful child who has her own life and purpose. And then my third relationship, which lasted nearly 25 years, was the one that broke me, the one that mirrored me, that allowed me to look in that mirror for the first time and to see myself. So the blaming I did, you know, I blamed my ex-husband for all this pain that I went through until I was able to look in that mirror. And by allowing my ego, I refer to it as a death, and it's really death of the ego. Your ego dies. You give up, you surrender. And your ego identity dies, and that's your ego. That's a part of you that says you have to control everything and you have to be the best and give the most and cry the most in order to earn something in this life. I had to I didn't let it go. It crumbled and broke off of me. I mean, that's more true. I broke in half. And when I regained consciousness, my ego was gone. I was completely surrendered to the universe. I said, please just take me in, teach me what I need to know in order to be um, healed. I didn't have any idea of where that would take me or who I would become. It didn't matter. I just wanted this stink off of me. I wanted this karmic weight out of me. I wanted this out of my aura. I wanted to attract love in my life and success and peace. I didn't want to attract pain. So by shifting my focus from my ex-husband to myself, I was able to do that. So when we search outwardly for our relief, and I've said this many times and I'll say it again, we are doing it in vain, and we are causing ourselves more pain and others more pain, unnecessary, or maybe it's necessary. It's all part of the karmic, the design of the universe, our divine timing. So when we do it, we're meant to do it. So whether we view it as negative or positive is really up to us. Whatever we go through in our life, we're meant to go through, even the most devastating parts. It's all connected. It's all part of a blueprint. And if we can look at our lives that way and know that it's not up to our ego is just on along for the ride. It's there to create action in the world, to take the steps, to make the changes. But our soul is the emanator. Our soul is the one driving the vehicle, and we have to let her drive. Otherwise, we get in the driver's seat and there's no steering. We just run into walls. We all have the bruises or the injuries. So other people are a mirror to us. They show us who we are. And if we are brave enough to look and really see who we are and allow our higher selves to give us epiphanies and realizations, we are guided on the path to illumination, self-illumination. And illumination just doesn't mean I can see, it means I am light. I elevate to light. I literally elevate out of my 3D compressed, dense state into a higher vibrational dimension. So I've elevated out of the 3D and I'm in the 4 or the 5D. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but in the 5D or the 5-dimensional vibrational realm, pain doesn't exist. Injury of the body and disease doesn't exist. It can't be compensated. It can't be held in that vibrational quality. So like you cannot hold on to electricity unless you put it into a conduit. So you're taking a 5D element and encompassing it into a 3D element so it can be utilized in the 3D, in this dense um, realm, in this dense body. The denseness of this body inhibits us from understanding that the electricity is flowing through us. The soul is in a conduit of this body. And as we elevate energetically and we release three-dimensional weight out of our bodies, pain, anguish, disappointment, depression, and all of the actions that our ego takes to compensate, which is poor decisions, bad relationships, addictions, medication, and I can go on and on. That's our ego's solution to to a problem that can only be solved by the soul. You see what I'm saying? The body isn't designed to solve problems. It's only designed to be the vehicle and to take action. The soul is the brain, the motherboard, the intelligence, the consciousness. So, when you get to this evolved state, your body cannot hold that anymore. It can't hold that three-dimensional weight anymore. So you become free. You become light. You become love. And this is what we're meant to become. This is what we're meant to become, love. And this is why our soul comes to this realm, is to experience love in the 3D, touch, emotions, gestures, sex, all of it. It's these interrelationship activities that our soul wants to experience. This is the virtual reality, the simulation. But we are love. And when we're not in these human suits, we are pure love. So when we choose a human suit and we come to this realm, and I'm black and you're white and you're female and you're whatever, we look at each other as different. And it's just it's the biggest illusion of this existence. But because our ego doesn't want anything that isn't similar to us, it triggers fight or flight. It wants to protect itself. So you're different from me, so I must destroy you. I mean, in the most exaggerated sense, you know what I'm talking about. This manifests in intolerance and in the inability to understand another person's position, which requires empathy, which is something that comes from the heart, the soul. So seeing each other as energetic beings beyond this human form is the only way we're going to overcome the dis-ease of diversity. We're all exactly the same. It's like hating my neighbor because she wore blue today. I mean, it's ridiculous. And when you evolve spiritually or energetically, which is more accurate, that falls away. You're unable to feel those desperate feelings that are rooted in fear of other people who are not like us. So you become an unconditionally loving being. And unconditional love is a cure to humanity's disease of intolerance of anything or anyone that doesn't look like us or think like us. So we fight for what we believe when we don't even understand what we're fighting for. We have no idea. So that's why our world is in such chaos, because we are so afraid of each other's differences. This is why we are not neighbors with the galactic beings in other star systems and galaxies around us who are very aware of us, who visit here often, who if you look at the news lately, they're trying to show us that they're there, but they're afraid to connect and engage because of the innate fear in us to destroy anything we don't understand. There are galactic neighbors. And they have technologies way beyond our abilities, but we are so densely compressed into this three-dimensional, heavy, slow motion energy that we are afraid of what's above us because we perceive it as more powerful and we fear it. And it's so sad to think about because they're our neighbors. And don't you think if they had this advanced technology that they could come here and wipe us out any day of the week? Hey, bleepity blop, it's Tuesday, it's time to go destroy Earth. I mean, what's to keep them from doing that if that was their intention? I'm not saying every being ever created is made of love. That's not the truth. But there are many, many other beings in this universe who are our neighbors, who we were completely unaware of because of our fear of it. So when we see a UFO, we're like, oh, shoot it down, kill it, pull it apart, dissect it. We do that with any beautiful life. We discover a new life form in the ocean, and all we want to do is catch it and dissect it. Why can't we just let it live? We all deserve the right to just live. Just because we're different doesn't mean we need to be dissected. We need to embrace the differences because we learn from each other, just like my soulmate coming to me with our diverse life experiences coming together and creating this ultra human. We have so much to learn from the people who have been through different experiences or from different cultures or backgrounds or races or whatever. It doesn't matter. And we're afraid of a man who loves another man. Why would be afraid of anything containing the word love? I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's time that we call it ridiculous. It's time that we embrace our differences as the gifts that they are. My goodness, I mean, it just. But this is what I'm talking about. This 4 or 5 dimensional energy that I now exist in doesn't have the capacity for this. And I'm not saying I was ever a racist person. I've always had this very wide worldview, which I'm sure is part of my innate love from the being I am inside of this body. But many of us are born in fear, and we are perpetuate fear by the fear we experience, and we take it out on those who mostly can't protect themselves because we are insecure and we feel weak by that. So we take out our insecurities and fears on the least on the most vulnerable, and we become the worst versions of ourselves, and we justify it by our belief system and what God wants me to do, or what Jesus would want, or whomever your idol is. My church told me that I have to hate that person because they don't believe in what I believe in. Religion is a man made. Religion has been twisted over the centuries into something that serves man's insecurities. Do you think if God left one piece of advice that we've uncovered and unearthed, it would say anything other than love? Love one another? If the guiding principle is just to love, there are no rules. They're not needed because love is the guiding principle, the guiding element in our hearts. And love does not allow destruction or abuse or the pain we inflict on others and ourselves. So look in that mirror and see yourself. And don't be afraid by what you see, because your ability to look in that mirror means you're already healed. You've already arrived. You just have to embrace it. And no, we're not all meant to look in that mirror in this lifetime. What fun would that be, right? For our souls. But that's the ultimate goal. And when you graduate human school, and maybe my soul will not evolve, not incarnate again because it doesn't need to. Maybe it's learned enough where now it can just be a support for other incarnate beings. Maybe not even in this realm, maybe in a different realm. We are infinite beings of light. And love is our soul. I mean, we're here to experience love in a human form. And look in that mirror. Start to recognize the parts of you that perpetuate the pain in your life, the parts of you that invite the relationships that show you who you are. And until you look at that, you just keep experiencing them over and over again. Our souls come here to evolve. And we do that through relationships. Because relationships teach us who we are and allow us to see the us we want to be. So, who do you look up to? Who do you truly admire? Maybe not the one you put on social media because it isn't a popular opinion, but who do you truly admire deep down? Allow that to come up. Allow that set of dormant cells to be activated in you, because once that activation occurs, you begin to change energetically, and your energy is separate from your ego. So you might be thinking one thing one day, but your energy is doing another thing. And I give you an example. This happened to me. I thought I was tolerating my ex-husband by living with him after we were divorced. I was going to get through this. I had a business to take care of. I have this life to leave. I'm dedicated to this life. But my energy said, you're done. And knocked me on my ass. So all logic went out the window. My ego, my brain became useless for a period of time while I was in surrender mode to my soul and to the universe. We must allow our ego to die. And then when we're reborn as this energetic being in a human form, and not a human with some sort of soul, when we identify as this energetic being, our brain becomes a tool. But it is no longer a dictating master because it has no fucking idea what it's doing. It only knows how to take care of the physical us in the physical realm. It doesn't know anything else but achieving pleasure and whatever the ego treasures: success, status, supremacy, money. Your ego will not get you love. It doesn't know how. It only knows how to manipulate and assimilate. Not even assimilate. It's not the right word. It only knows how to create the appearance of the facade that we wear, the mask. That's the ego compensating for the shortcomings in its abilities. It creates a mask for us to wear so we don't have to be who we are. Why do you think social media is so important? Because it allows us to show the version of ourselves that we want everyone to see. There's a movie with Bruce Willis, I can't remember what it's called, where he's a cop in a virtual reality world, and the real him is lying in a lounge chair with a headset on, withering away in real life, with no love, nothing in his real life, only his simulation. So to me, virtual reality is our simulation. It's the world that we create outside of the virtual reality we're in. So our virtual reality selves has something to look up to. But you see the trap here? It's just a trap. There's nothing there. It's all a facade. And I'm not saying get off of social media. I mean, do what you want. But to me, when I look at social media, which I'm really unable to do anymore, I was never really engaged with it. I'm doing it with my work now because I want to share my story, because storytelling is my purpose now. You start to scroll and you notice you scroll faster and faster. You don't connect with anything because there's nothing to connect to. And we've just become a drone scrolling. That's all we do. And it's another escape. It's an escape from our virtual reality, which is our soul's experience. But when we choose to connect with our soul through surrender of our ego or death of our ego, we connect with our engine and we never run out of gas again. We never run out of wonder and appreciation and gratitude for this life, because gratitude is the engine for abundance. If we have nothing to be thankful for, we don't attract abundance in our lives. That's a whole nother podcast. I know I'm gone over an hour now, but just think about every relationship you're in is a mirror. And what is that mirror showing you about yourself? That's the key, is to understand that it's like walking into a fun house. We expect to be afraid and startled, and we don't understand anything. You know, don't be afraid to walk through that portal, that doorway into your inner self, into your soul self, because what awaits you is some fucked up shit to begin with. I'm not going to lie. You got to go through the dark tunnel to get to the bright other side. There's no other way. So surround yourself with supportive love, or close yourself in and take this journey. You feel very lost at first because you have to give up your ideal of everything, the constructs that you worshiped. And these are these are your religion, your belief systems, your cultural beliefs, your learned beliefs, your experiential beliefs. You have to examine all of it, and it is uncomfortable. But if you don't go down this dark tunnel for a brief period of time, you walk that tunnel the rest of your life. You just don't realize it. You're in the dark and lost the rest of your life. You just convince yourself that you're not until you get home and sit by yourself. And when you start to feel yourself, you get up and run again. We distract ourselves from it because we don't know what else to do. So the mirror, our relationships, our portal into who we are. And if we choose to look, we will be enlightened. And if we choose the path of undoing or healing, I guess is the best way to put it, we are rewarded because our outer life reflects our inner self. And whether we know it or not, we are manifesting every moment of our lives. And whether you do it from a place of complete unawareness or absolute clarity, you're still manifesting. So, what do you want to manifest? More karmic lessons that you ignore and go on and repeat like a broken record? Or do you want to take a look at the blueprint and say, oh, this is where I need to focus? And human design and the gene keys are material to help you do that. And I'll say that every time I talk about this. I do not get a dime from them. They have no idea who I am. But if you're truly ready and you want to take this journey and you're tired of running into walls and getting black eyes and bloody noses and falling back down on your ass and not knowing how to get back up, then give this a shot. You know, we are all the same. We are a network of living energy that blankets the universe. We are in a human suit having a human experience. First, let that be your first understanding. So, with that understanding, okay, let me look at what my experience is. What does my soul want to do here? And the gene keys in the human design and the gene keys, specifically the Venus sequence, highlights exactly what karma your soul is dealing with. In plain terminology, not in esoteric concepts. Your soul wants to experience being a victim. Your soul is living a mundane life because it needs to awaken to style and to trailblazing. It's specific. It's not concepts. It's your specific you, John, Frank, Bill, Bob, whoever, your specific map of your energy. It tells you exactly what you need to know and where to focus. It's a cheat sheet. It's linked on my website and in the description on YouTube if there's a description section wherever else this is posted. But let me leave you with that. Look at yourself in the mirror. See who you really are, and then you can really embrace and appreciate that. First and foremost, don't beat yourself up because that's counterintuitive, counterproductive. You love and accept who you are, just like we should love and accept everyone. And then you do what needs to be done to transmute your pain into love and evolve out of the realm of pain. So, thank you for listening. I know I went longer than ever on this one. So, my apologies if that was inconvenient, but I need to let it go as long as it goes. And I appreciate you listening, and I look forward very much to speaking to you again.